All right, welcome to the HyperFast Agent Show. We've got an amazing guest today, an agent on our team, the Keri team, who's been in the business for 4 years and is already on pace to do nearly 36 deals this year. Welcome to the show, Kyle Russell.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Best real estate podcast in the game, I hear.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on today, Kyle. I know this is challenging times we're all going through with the lockdown, but thank you for making the time to jump on Zoom and do this podcast. I know the listeners today are going to get a ton of value out of hearing your experiences and just getting your advice on how to quickly build a business, which is what you have done. So before we dive into some of those techniques and those strategies, why don't you give people a quick background of who you are and a little overview of your real estate career?
Yeah. So I would say that my career has been based in customer service. Before I was a realtor, I was trained by both Enterprise Rent-A-Car, which sounds awful, and Edward Jones, but either way, they're both two of the sort of like top customer service based businesses in the U.S. They have, they spend a lot of resources on training and customer service. So, I didn't enjoy working for either of them, but I wouldn't take it back because I learned a ton through both of them on how to deal with just multiple types of people, multiple types of situations. It was a really good foundation. So from that point on, once I moved on, I actually had wanted to be a real estate agent out of high school. But I didn't, my parents wanted me to go to college, and I wasn't sure how well I would fare as an 18-year-old in the real estate industry anyway. But finally, right after that, I decided, I had savings. It was time to jump into it. Started selling cars for a little bit while I could get my real estate license, because had a lot of downtime there, so it was easy to study and also make some money and do what I needed to do. So did that, got my license about 8 months after I had ended with Edward Jones and was selling the cars, and then I started looking around. Beggars can't be choosers when you're a brand new agent, so just sort of started applying everywhere. I ended up with a smaller boutique firm out of Fairfax that was a similar situation to what the Keri team does now, except just, eons behind, where, you sort of got some lead generation, you got a little bit of training, and there was a lot more hands-on, because that's what I felt like I needed. I didn't really want to do the Keller Williams or Century 21 stuff where you had to pay to be in it, and you were just kind of cogging the system, and they didn't care if you sold or not, So I did that. I quickly became one of their top salesmen in that office, which I didn't think was a good thing as a brand new agent. So from that point on, I started looking. Once I felt like there was a ceiling there, and I don't really like to see a ceiling. So once I saw that ceiling eminently over my head, I looked for the Keri team, looked around, found them, and it all worked out. And that's where I've gotten to today. Great decision.
Yeah, I think a couple interesting points there that we can kind of peel back a little. One is this idea of never being the smartest, most advanced, best performing, or whatever you want to call it, person in the room. Because once you do that, you're in a place where your growth is limited. In other words, like, you need other people that are at your level or a little bit past it to push yourself, to learn from, and to just, motivate you to get to the next level. So is that kind of what you were thinking early on?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple principles that you're sticking on there. I mean, obviously, what you touched base on there was you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. That's when your growth gets stunted. But also, like, you want to surround yourself with people that you feel help your strengths and also help push you to grow more, and that you can learn from and motivate yourself to potentially pass or get onto the same level as. So when you, in that situation, even the top performers weren't that top of performers in the company. So, if you're getting to that level anyway, it didn't really feel like that much of an achievement. It felt like sort of like, okay, I had to hit the ceiling, and, that ceiling was being just like an average agent, which is not what I want to be. So, I mean, that was a big driving force. And I mean, not knowing, when you're a first-time agent, you don't know what you don't know. But, once you're a couple years in, I think it's pretty easy to see where your growth needs to go. And if you're okay with it being, 15 transactions a year or, what have you, then sure. But that just wasn't for me.
Yeah, I think the other interesting thing about your experiences is you got to do sales in other professions, cars, financial products, right? And what would you say the difference has been between selling rental cars, selling investments versus selling a home?
Yeah, so there's a tangible factor. I mean, that's a really, really big difference. It's much simpler. Well, not much simpler, but it's a lot easier to sell something that somebody can see, right? I mean, it's right there. A house is there. When they walk into a house, they know what they're buying. You can jump into the intangibles of home ownership and making investment in that house, but it's very, very different than my first two sales jobs, which at Enterprise you're pretty much selling insurance. I mean, that's there's like liability and coverage and personal assets and stuff like that you're protecting in the car, but you have to sell value that may or may not happen, right?
I never buy that stuff at checkout, by the way. I don't know if that's good or bad or what your opinion is.
No, pro tip to everybody: don't. It's you don't need it, man. Your insurance company, they'll tell you it won't protect you, but they will.
In general, I've always thought point of sale insurance on any product or service is not a good.
It's
deal.
not. I mean, the percentage chance that you're going to use it is so low that, I mean, there's going to be some success stories, but it's so.
I bought it one time though. I'll share the one time I bought a point of sale insurance was trip cancellation. All this shit was going on with weather, getting back from Florida, and I was, instead of flying to DC, they were going to route me to Philly, so I bought this train ticket, which I knew the flight was probably going to be delayed, so I actually bought the point of sale insurance, and I got the cash in on it. That's the one time.
It's the one time. Hey, at least that was thought out. At least there was a higher percentage chance you might use it. But yeah, I mean that's the big. I mean, the same thing with insurance. Like you're selling like you may use it someday. You're going to pay for it now, but you may use it someday. Who knows? So I mean, I think that's the greater. Those were more challenging than.
Yeah, the house you're going to use. You're going to live in it. You can touch it, feel it. Like you're gonna wake up in it, come home to it.
Yeah.
What about the compared to financial investments?
So it's still even. I mean, that's still pretty intangible. I mean, you can people are going to buy with the intent of making money off it or saving or doing the 401k or whatever, but it's still pretty much an intangible product. You're saying like, I think this would do well, or I'm going to handle your finances and you don't have to worry about it. But you're not receiving something the moment you buy it, right? Like you're not, it's not, there's that instant gratification isn't really there. So they're just a little harder to sell, right? Because it's it sets you up for the other aspect of being a real estate agent where, you're selling based off of your relationship. How quickly can you build a relationship with somebody? How quickly can you build trust? You have to sound like, even if you don't, you have to sound like you know what you're talking about, which you should. But that's another piece to being a real estate agent, obviously, but that's the whole piece to being an enterprise salesman or a financial salesman, because they're not getting that instant gratification.
What do you think is harder about real estate compared to selling, insurance or financial products?
Real estate's it's every facet, so those were like they were mainly relationship building. Real estate is everything, right? For one, it's the most important. People are going to be much more worried about this transaction because you'll hear it every single time. It's the most important decision that most people are making in their lives. But also you're dealing with multiple personalities. Generally, you're dealing with 1 to 2 to 3 people in the transaction. They may all have different personalities that you have to mesh with and work together with. And it's a much longer transaction, obviously, as well. So the person that you deal with when they're looking at houses may not be the same person that you deal with when they're in the middle of a transaction. They may be super nice and super calm and easy to work with, when you're looking at houses, and then the day they go under contract, they may be a totally different person, so it's just a much more complicated transaction than those two. Once you get somebody to say yes in the other ones, it's over. It's, they've said yes, they back off, and they may panic here and there, but you're done with it at that point, as long as you do your job.
Yeah, I was actually just having this conversation on another show with Jonathan, and we talked about how you have to be an expert and a friend, because the process is that much longer, and,
right.
And it's much more emotional, so you're going to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a challenge for sure. Walk us through, your once you made the switch to real estate, mm-hmm. What was the start like in that first year or two, and then what's been the last 2 years? How's that been being on the team here?
Yeah, so the start was awful.
Most are. This is not an easy industry to start off for most people.
Yeah, I think we make it look glamorous, but it's absolutely not glamorous, especially when you're first starting off. Like I brought up a little bit earlier, you just don't know what you don't know. And, when you're first starting, and this is also for me was a transition of having a steady paycheck to being like, okay, I'm gonna live or die. I'm all in here. So that's unsteady. That's a hard feeling to have behind you, to jump into something where you don't know if you're going to be successful or not. And if you're not successful, you're in trouble. There is no fallback there. So, at the very beginning, I was willing to help anybody that was breathing, right? Anybody that would talk to me and let me open up a door for them, because you have to get that valuable experience, and you don't feel like you have the background to be able to just say no to people. And unfortunately, there's a lot of tough learning curves and a lot of things you need to learn by failure and success. So, the first year, it took me, I think 3 months, if I remember correctly, to make my first sale. And, from that point, I was hooked. It's that feeling that you get, when somebody's just really, really happy, they've made a really, really big decision for their life, for their family, for whatever reason. And they get done, they close and sign those documents, and you hand them that key, and you can just see the brightness in their face, and they're so happy about it, and they want, to hug. And high five or, whatever it may be. I mean, that feeling is really, to me, like no other. And, once I had that down, that was what I was seeking. Right. I mean, I didn't get that feeling in other sales, like in other types of businesses that I was in. It was always just cold transaction. You're just chasing transactions. And that's not me. That's why I hated it. I mean, it took me a while to realize it, but that's why I hated it. That you built a superficial relationship. You built it in like 15 minutes, and then the sale was done, and maybe you talk to them some other time after that, or maybe once a year or something like that. This one, I mean, I truly make friends. I truly have people that can help me out afterwards, and that I can help out afterwards, and we have conversations, and we have our team events and stuff like that when it's available. So, once I had that feeling, it built. But still, I mean, it took a long time. I mean, once I had hit that ceiling and I had gotten into year 2 with the first firm, and I had like 12 sales. I mean, I can't remember if it was like 12 or 15, but somewhere in that range of sales. I felt the stagnant. I felt like there was something I didn't know. There's and the market was getting hotter at that point, so it was a little easier when I first started, because there weren't these like 20 offers that you're trying to beat, or 15 offers that you're trying to beat. And most of the time, the ones I was winning was maybe we might have been the only offer, we may have been 2 or 3 offers, but I could tell there was something I didn't know, and there's something that wasn't being brought to me that I needed to know. So when I made the transition over to the Keri team, and obviously they do so much more training than I even knew was possible. I mean, it just opened up world. I mean, it was so much easier. I mean, it's not an easy business, but you need to be able to get it as easy as you can get it, because if you're not, you're going to fail. So, once I got the rest of the training and understood, how to really make offers and how to really talk to clients, and, do what I really should be doing for every single client, it took off from there, because I already had the rest of it. I already had the other back end stuff.
Yeah, I think, training extremely vital in everything that you do if you want to be good at it. And real estate agents, I think, a lot of times struggle with this, and they have this idea that, I'll just show up and show houses, or I'll just call people, and no, like, you have to practice. Like, it's no different than a professional athlete, a doctor who studies for years. Like, you got to put in the time and the practice if you want to do well.
Right.
I think also, and you hinted at this earlier, you need the right environment. So you need people around you that will push you, that will collaborate with you, that will compete with you.
Right.
And, I think, at 12 deals, you used to be like the top dude in your office. Now you're going to do 32, 34.
Right.
I don't even know if that'll put you in the top 5 here.
Might not. Yeah, it might not. It's crazy.
Right. So that's going to push you to 40 or more in the following years.
Yeah.
So you need that training, but you also need that environment. Like,
right.
I notice this even when I train for Ironmans. When I go to like a weekend kind of training event, if I'm around other people that are a little bit better than me, or even a lot better, like I do the workouts harder. It's just, there's just some other extra reserve that somehow you can hit, no matter how much you don't want to think that's the case. Like, it's just always a little bit easier when there's someone on your tail, or someone that you're chasing down.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how your mindset can change when your situation changes, because it's like, I remember, again, like in year 2, getting to like the 14th sale or something, to be like, man, I'm killing it. Sitting there like at the top of the leaderboard, like, but I'm selling, 1.25 houses a month or something. And now, I had got to March, and I was at, 12 sales or something like that this year. And I'm like, man, I got to pick it up. like I sold more in 3 months than I basically had sold in a year and a half as my first couple of years of being a real estate agent, and I was just like, man, I'm slacking. Like I gotta work harder.
Yeah, you need the training, but you need the championship environment. That's when you have that, look, everybody's performance rises, everybody feeds off each other, so it's great to watch. It's been great to see with you, and I know you've got to get to some showings and wrap up another deal, so we're going to wrap up soon, but before we do that, we're going to do the HyperFast round. Are you ready?
Okay, sure.
All right, so it's rapid fire Q&A time.
All right.
What has been your biggest challenge as a real estate agent?
Biggest challenge is opening door locks.
That's a good one. Nah, that can be hard sometimes.
Man, I get nervous. But no. I mean, it's dealing with the personalities for sure. Dealing with different people every time.
All right, what has been the most rewarding transaction or person or just anything that in your real estate career?
Sure. I had someone that I worked with for 3 years. Had a lot of credit issues, had a lot of other like personal things going on in their life, and 3 years of communication with that guy. And last year, he finally got to a situation, and parents were living with him. It was just not a good situation where they lived, and finally got them to a point where they could buy a house, and they bought a beautiful, like huge, brand new build house, and just like tears in the eyes at the closing day. I mean, that was something I will never forget that.
Awesome. Yeah, it's all about the follow-up. I mean, and credit to you for staying in touch for that long. A lot of agents probably would have given up long before. What's been the biggest mistake you've made as a real estate agent?
Biggest mistake. Lack of follow-up is probably always the biggest mistake. I think I'm pretty good at follow-up, but still every year I get hit with something where you got to learn, I mean, it's deals are lost, I mean, helping people buy houses are lost by just waiting 1 second on follow-up sometimes.
Yeah, no, follow up. What's your biggest piece of advice to a new agent?
We've touched on it a lot. Don't do it yourself. Don't do it by yourself. Your growth will be slow. You probably won't be successful. This is not just like I can just jump into it and do it. You need somebody. You need a coach. You need a team. You need people to drive you.
All right, last one. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Man, that's a great question. I'm going to try to get into that top 5.
Yeah?
I'm trying to get into that top 5. Yeah, I don't know if I want to see myself at number 1, honestly, but I would like to be like at number 2 with 50 sales, right?
All right, number 2, 50 deals a year.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on the show, Kyle. We've
no problem.
Had a blast. Before we sign off, if people want to get in touch with you or reach out to you about buying or selling a home, what's the best way to connect with you on social or whatever you prefer?
Yeah. Obviously, anybody can reach out to our team, the Keri Scholl team, on kerischoll.com, but also I am Homes by Kyle at Homes by Kyle. On Instagram, and Kyle Russell Real Estate on Facebook, and but no one should have any trouble finding me. I'll tell you that.
All right, and you can't tell because he's sitting down, but he's like 7 feet tall in person.
Yeah.
So you really won't have.
Look at these hands.
Really won't have a problem finding Kyle. Thanks for being on this show today. And for all of you tuning in, listening, watching, thank you. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the HyperFast Show. Subscribe to us if you want to make sure you get the latest and greatest HyperFast shows. And remember, we love reviews. reviews help us bring better and better guests and improve our shows. So give us the good, the bad, and the ugly. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you want to see more, click right here. And if you want 100 real estate tips from my best-selling book, click right here to download them instantly. And if you're new to this channel, click below to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out. And leave some comments about what you think on the videos. I read them all each week, and I select winners to give out hats, shirts, coaching calls with me, and tickets to some of our events. I'll see you next time.